Welcome to the Scoop World Order. Kirk is going to win a bet tonight because somebody bet me that I wouldn't win a Quinn Ewers jersey on the show. But here we are, and Hook 'em Horns beat the big bad Wolverines. I can't wait for that tomorrow. We are not Wolverine fans on here, unlike some folks, so we're excited to see Q go do his thing and dominate those guys. I know a lot of Buckeyes are on that. I know a lot of smart money is on that, so we're super excited about that. There's some new Michigan stuff brewing, potential timeline, potential date. Cade Stover said some pretty incendiary stuff about these guys picking some signs, and it was very interesting. The progress reports for the coaches came out. We also have some Western Michigan preview stuff we're going to do. So we're going to break all that down as always. If you guys enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe. Also, click that little alert bell. Again, we appreciate all of you guys for being a part of the show each and every night. I hope you guys are having a great weekend. We're going to boogie because Nevada is the biggest Packers fan in the world. So I promise you we'll be out here by the time the foot hits the ball in Brazil, which is still very strange. And it's weird to have an NFL game that is a real game on a Friday night. But hey, we're going to get to it. But again, we appreciate you guys for all that you guys do. Shout out SC Buckeye. He came out today. We had a nice little lunch today. It was good seeing him and his son up from South Carolina. Again, if any of the Scoop family is in the area, hit me up. We usually go to some of our sponsors, have a little bit of lunch, have a good time. But it was great getting to know some of the Scoop fam today. It was just an epic day, really good day. So again, if you guys want to do something fantastic, something that's been huge for us, consider joining our podcast on Apple Podcasts. Click subscribe, give us a 5-star review, along with Spotify. You can join both of those literally for free. And they help us immensely. So thank you guys that have all done that. We've had a slew of you guys that have done that, along with following us on YouTube. So thank you for that. So I hope you guys are ready to have a great weekend. A lot of great football. I'm going to bring in Nevada. Nevada is one of the best football weekends, I think, ever with the Packers, especially for you. Packers on Friday. Thursday Night Football last night was great. Buckeyes tomorrow night. Quinn Ewers and the Hook 'em Horns. Shout out to my boy Vince Young, along with Q. Up north to beat the Wolverines, and then Sunday all day for week 1 of the NFL. How are you feeling right now?
I'm excited. I mean, what a great weekend. Like last weekend was kind of the appetizer, and it felt good to have football back. But obviously now, it starts to get real, and the games start to get real. And this it doesn't get any more real than Texas Michigan tomorrow. Um, that's gonna be a fun one. And it's look, I've been talking junk about Michigan all year, and if they go in there and beat Texas, man, I will tip my hat to them. I will tip my, but I do not think that's gonna. I've got my money and my energy and a lot riding on the fact that Texas wins tomorrow. So I feel really good about that. I feel really good about the way Texas is playing, and Michigan's just so limited. I think it's going to take a miracle for them to even stay in that game. So I've got Texas winning by multiple scores, and hope if they get out early too, and Michigan has to pass, then it could really get ugly.
Yeah, I agree. Because then you unleash Texas's pass rush versus a walk-on quarterback. Because when you get out early at a team against a team like Michigan that doesn't, Michigan, they remind me a lot of the old Wisconsin. Like old Wisconsin was like, if we could pounce and get up 14-0 early, they're like a turtle on its back because they want to get ahead. They want to grind the ball. They want to run it. They want to play defense. They want to play field position, kind of like the old Trussell ball. But the thing they don't want is they don't want to get down by a couple scores and then they got to fight all the way back. So I think that Texas has got obviously maybe the best quarterback in the entire country in Quinn Ewers. They've got fantastic skill. They've got a good O-line. Their defense is nasty. Even though they lost a bunch of really high draft picks, they've replenished it pretty well. It'll be interesting because again, I think that Michigan showed a lot of warts week 1, and I think that's going to continue on to week 2. The Michigan stuff has been kind of bubbling up. I had a couple tidbits I shared with you today. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Again, Cade Stover has some very incendiary comments that we talked about where, he talked about, them implementing a screen pass and it was from a formation they never showed before. And he motioned in and all of a sudden the whole team's yelling screen. Again, I think we talked pre-show about an hour ago, correctly pointed out that they probably had the signal for screen, which again, I think that's a much easier thing to pick off because again, I've been on an offensive staff and we would have Y screen, T screen. Y screen is the tight end, T screen is the tailback. There would be like some sort of a signal for the word screen. And I think you correctly pointed out that Connor Stein has probably picked that. and it was enough for them to denote that and have all the players screaming out screen before the play actually happened. But what were your thoughts on that? 'Cause I thought what Cade said was it's pretty pointed, and again, he also had to have like some kind of like a fake humility where it's like, yeah, but we still lost and I don't have much to say because we were 0-3 and stuff. It's like if someone beat me at poker but they cheated on every hand, and I was like, well, yeah, I guess I didn't win, but they it doesn't help that they were cheating, but I still didn't win. It was kind of like one of those like reluctant type things, because again, it does suck when you lose those games because even with all the odds against them, on the scoreboard and walking off the field and in the locker room that day, they came up with zeros. But I think Michigan's about to get smoked. But what were your reactions to what Cade Stover had to say?
Well, I thought it was interesting because look, Cade is a real straight shooter, and he's a guy that's big on accountability, something that Michigan fans and Michigan players don't know anything about. So this is kind of if you're a Michigan fan listening to this, I'll try to explain to you what accountability is. It's when you accept responsibility for your actions and what happened. And he owned it that they didn't win the games, and maybe he didn't do enough, and they didn't get there. But you could tell him and CJ have a lot to say about Michigan and what was going on out there because they knew to some degree, but then as they reflect upon the stuff and you reflect upon the games and the perfect calls and the number of times that Michigan was able to anticipate what Ohio State was going to do in that 2022 game, and especially it just it all makes everything kind of clicks. When you get more facts. And I think now, as people know what was going on, um, I mean, it was such a profound difference in the game, and the idea that you still have to stop the plays, or it only made a 3% difference, or stuff. It just becomes more and more laughable as you kind of dig more into this thing, and you see, there's a big article in the Athletic talking about the other coordinators were just they're like, there's no way that Jim Harbaugh did not know. Jim Harbaugh, if he goes, they say, I think the quote was something to paraphrase into the fact of if a recruiting analyst comes to you and says, I've got their signs, then you immediately know that he had to have done something illegal because nobody picks the signs off the television or just gets them from watching the game or whatever. There's no way that happens, one. And then two, if you see your recruiting analyst interacting directly with your coordinators in the middle of games, at the very least, you're like, what in the world is going on here? No, nobody would allow that to go on without asking questions 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So Jim Harbaugh's denials are just they're laughable to anybody that knows what's going on there. It was such an obvious and ham-handed cheating scandal. As you mentioned in the run up on this, we've actually heard people think that this thing could wrap up sooner than later, but I don't even want to. I don't want to go there because predicting. Whenever I get into timing, man, timing is really really hard. But I do think we're this is getting towards end game right now, and it's very very interesting to see how this thing plays out because the Michigan team that we talked about last night, how they can't really throw in the towel on the season when they're undefeated because that'll infuriate the crazies. But if they're trying to do it for the NCAA, will that look better with the NCAA to throw the towel in? When they actually still have some hope in terms of the college football playoff. So I kind of keep going back and forth in terms of from an NCAA standpoint, which is bigger. Now I know what I'm rooting. I'm rooting for them to lose by 100 points tomorrow, and the stadium to get swallowed up by a giant sinkhole into the center of the earth. But short of that happening, I just want them to lose badly, and we'll see what happens with this NCAA thing. But I do think it is, and there's a lot of smart people that think it's close. It's close to wrapping this thing up, and I think Michigan had their druthers. We've all wondered about why the notice of allegations hasn't leaked. I think what they're hoping is that they can wrap this thing up and not have to have go through the embarrassment of the leak of the notice of allegations and have all the attendant media that goes along with it. I think they want to announce a settlement, some sort of final closure on it, and wrap the whole thing up and try to get through it. I think from a crisis management standpoint, that's what they're being advised to do, and I think that's probably what they're going to do.
Yeah, because I mean, you've been a part of major organizations and dealing with crisis, and they bring in PR teams and they bring in crisis management teams. These guys are all on retainers, and they're advising, hey, if you can get this thing done quick, again, I had good source say potentially this Wednesday, which again, I'm not pinning anybody to, and I'm not, don't like put a gun to my head and say, Kirk, you lied, but it's just like that's what I was told. But if they get smoked by Texas, which a lot of us are projecting, then all of a sudden you're sitting there, you're just like, yeah, it makes sense to take it on the chin now. Because again, like you look at USC, look at Oregon, look at Ohio State, like this is not going to be a great year for Michigan. They're going to have three, 4 losses easily, and then the season's going to be kind of down the tube. So you might as well start the motion right now. Again, I think that Sherrone Moore is a patsy. I think he's going to be gone. I think it's interesting, because he was on, I think, McAfee or one of the shows, and they asked about the unsigned contract, and he said, well, I'm getting paid like I've signed a contract, and we're working to have a signed contract. But it's like, when you don't have a signed contract, it's a whole different ball of wax. So it's really interesting how he kind of phrased it and how he defended it. But, Michigan's obviously paying him every 2 weeks or whatever, and paying him his, a huge chunk of money every single month. But they haven't let him execute the contract, which again, as the little notices came up yesterday, there isn't they've got issues, like the second the repeat offender thing is huge, getting caught for a second violation, because it literally just shows that you're willfully going to break the rules. You have no regard for the rules. Again, as someone who's a coach, like if you got pinched once, fine, they're pretty lenient, get back on the right track. If you get pinched again for something like this, it's crazy. And again, we talked a little bit. The Athletic had an article. It had anonymous sources, and there was a defensive coordinator that was anonymously quoted. And again, it's kind of the opposite of me, because you can put my name on anything I say on the show. But I said, the DC said exactly what I've been saying to you guys. Like, look, if some recruiting assistant, some junior jet recruiting assistant is talking to your coordinators the entire game, and they're in your ear between every play. If you're the head coach, eventually you're gonna ask what's going on. Why are you talking to that guy? At some point, like again, I know like Jim Harbaugh likes to play everybody as fools and act like everyone's a complete moron. But you guys listen to Buckeye Scoop, so you guys listen to us, and like, look, the head coach knew exactly what's going on. So do the coordinators, because like Mark Pantoni, I'll give you $100 the next time you see Mark Pantoni on the sideline talking to, Jim Knowles and Chip are up in the box, but go back and watch the old tapes of the last few years where Ryan's been calling the plays. Find me a single clip of Mark Pantoni, he's our head recruiting guy. Like Connor Stearns is like the B-level assistant recruiting guy. Show me a time where Mark Pantoni has been talking to Ryan Day on the field in between play calls. It's never happened in the history of the program. And again, I would bet everything I have on that one. I've never seen it before. He just hangs back, sunglasses on, watching the game, not involved in any of the day-to-day game stuff other than making sure that the recruits have, cold, Diet Cokes or ice cold Coca-Cola to drink, or cheeseburgers or hot or whatever. That's his game day prep. He's not involved in the game day stuff. And again, I've been on the sideline. I've been in the box. I've been everywhere. I've never seen a recruiting guy talk to a coordinator ever on game day, not during a game, never. Maybe before the game, hey, go say hi to this big-time tackle or go say hi to this quarterback. Never, ever, ever in the history of a game have I seen a recruiting guy talk to a coordinator during the game. Nevada, I'm going to break a play down real quick because I know that we had a really nice super chat yesterday that was asking me.
Hold on.
Good.
I want to say one more thing just before we get that, because I want to see this play, but Justin Spiro had done a great job. He'd pulled up some of the and you guys know from Justin Benner, he'd pulled up the comments that Ward Manuel had made when Mel Pearson, the hockey coach, was operating with Michigan without a contract, same situation, and the comments were almost exactly the same. It was like, he doesn't have a contract, but we're working towards it. But there's some things, and he's our coach, and we expect him to be our coach, and blah blah blah, all this stuff. And then what happened? Mel Pearson's gone from Michigan. So like
Yep.
you can read the tea leaves on what's going on with Sharon Moore. And like Sharon Moore is a dead man walking. There's
Yeah.
absolutely no doubt about it. He's not going to survive this. He'll be sacrificed to the funeral pyre that is going to be the NCAA when they burn down the program. So yeah, but I did want to say that because I just found it so it was striking how similar the language was. It was exactly the same language and a very mirror situation. You know, a coach that's the head coach is operating without a contract, which I guess is kind of the Michigan way. You operate without a contract while you're in the midst of these big NCAA or other types of issues. But anyway, on to the play. Let's break
No,
it down.
I totally agree. So we're gonna break down the G Scott play again. This was one that was it was brought up. I defended G Scott, which again you guys know. Like it's not that I'm not a fan of G. I don't. I'm different. I'm just fair and I'm honest. So this was a play that was asked to be broken down. So I dialed this up real quick for you guys. So here's G right here, and it's a read option. So when you run a read option, here's your read key. So you know when you see this is your read key. This is who Will Hard's reading, and he's crashing upfield. So he decides to hand this to Trey because he doesn't feel like he's crashing in on Trey. He feels like he's taking the quarterback. So here's your read key. So he hands it to Trey. So G does what we call an arc block. So here's G right here. He's going to arc release and go block. I believe he's on the basically the alley guy. So this is the alley guy. So he's basically kind of blocking this like Will's keeping it here, but he hands it. And again, this is kind of a tricky read because a lot of times when it's not this vertical, this is a pretty vertical. A lot of times with read option, it would be a little bit more like this, where you're coming front side. But this is so vertical that the end just crashes straight up field, and Will Howard decides that this guy's taking the quarterback, and so he hands it off. And G looks terrible here, but he's thinking that Will is going to have this running over here, and he's going to kind of pick him like a basketball play. But instead, Travion's got the ball, and it looks terrible. So people are like, "What's Will doing?" or "What's G doing?" He sucks. He's terrible. But I think that the coaching point on this is like you just have to go. You have to release harder and firmer. Because again, this is a pretty easy release. This is a 7 technique. A 7 technique is on this inside shoulder. So G, if I'm coaching tight ends, which again I played tight end in high school, so I know how to play tight end. I would just say, look, here's the deal. You just release and you just go kill this guy. Go blast him. Go blow him up. Go delete him from the play. And even if he bounces off you, he's still going to be more disheveled than right here. Like right here, he's not even affected. So he can go, get a chunk of Trey. So I would say instead of being this patient, instead of like trying to release and kind of pick him, just run right at him and go kill him and knock him out. So again, I am giving G Scott, this is a teaching moment. This isn't and again, I know G Scott is not some virtuoso blocker in the history of football, but I think that, the teaching point on that is, look, when it's something like this where the read is close, just go run at the guy and kill him. Don't try to, fit him up and kind of, go through the motions and get close and like just go put your hat on him and again make him make a decision because like sometimes like with receivers, like when they're out on the perimeter, like your receivers blocking on the perimeter, that's one of the hardest jobs in football. People don't talk about it because if you've got a slow developing play like a reverse or a sweep and you're a receiver, you got to block that for like 5-6 seconds. Like that's almost impossible to do without holding. So at some point you got to let the guy go. But again, I as much as I don't want to fault you there. I really don't even want to fault Keenan Bailey. I would just say, look, if I was coaching, I'd say, look, just take off and just affect them. Either way, like again, if Will Howard would have pulled that and ran it out the back door, then I think that what G did would have been perfect. But when you're running read option, it's kind of like you're in this gray area because you don't know if he's going to hand it off. And you don't know if he's, because again, you can't tell once G. Scott releases past the line of scrimmage, he has no idea what the defensive end is doing. He doesn't know if he's taking the running back or taking the quarterback. So he was trying to block like he thought he was going to take the running back and the quarterback was going to pull the ball. And obviously that didn't happen. So again, I know that G got whipped pretty good for that one because, people are like, oh, G sucks and he's not paying attention and why is he in the game or whatever. But I can kind of see what he was trying to do. And I think that, like I said, the coaching point on that is just go kill the guy. Like, don't try to form him up. Because again, if Will pulls that, that's probably the perfect block because he can just form the guy up and, Will's got a nice clean alley to go run and get the ball. But again, that's how I'd coach it because that's a very difficult block. It's a lot like, in an RPO, which is a run pass option, which is where there's usually like a read option play, like that run play that can also be a throw. We used to have to coach the offensive line like, hey, come off the ball and double team, but don't go too far down the field. And again, like, when you say that, it's like, well, if it's a running play and you tell me not to go too far down the field, then a lot of times we couldn't correctly block a linebacker the way we needed to. And the play would look like trash. It would look like our guys are being passive and soft and unathletic, whatever. And then, if you throw it and they're where they need to be, then you're good. But the risk of that is like on an RPO is, are they going to call an ineligible man downfield, which is something that, again, it varies by the crew. It varies by the officiating crew. Like last night, if you guys watched Thursday Night Football, they called, Ronnie Stanley, who's probably one of the 5 best left tackles in the NFL, 3 times for being too deep in his vertical set, in his stance, which again, that's a rule that the NFL is put in, and it's always been a thing where, in general, like if you play tackle, like I played tackle in the National Football League and I played it in college, and if you want to cheat a little bit and make it easier to pass block, on pass pro you cheat back in your stance a little bit, you back up off the line a little bit. Like if this is a line of scrimmage and you can line up back here, it gives you a little bit more room against speedy pass rushers. So something that the NFL does intermittently is they will sit there and they'll say, well, we're going to really penalize it this year. And then, by like week 3, they stop doing it, or week 4. And it's just something where I felt like they were picking on Ronnie Stanley last night because he got called 3 times. And then the Chiefs' right tackle was in the backfield for half the game and they never called him. And again, I'm not going to get into it with the Chiefs because I think that the NFL is rigged for the Chiefs more than
Kurt, let me. How many times did the right tackle move early for the Chiefs last night?
Like at least 3 or 4. At least.
It was
Jawan. Yeah, Jawan is known for that more than any player in maybe NFL history for getting a jump and also just lining up in the backfield. He was off the center's hip. Again, the idea is that if this is the center, like your helmet has to break his belt line. If this is his belt. And a lot of times he was way back. And I'm like, and I was talking to Kim when I was watching this, I was like, well, that's going to be a penalty for sure. And they didn't call it. But on Ronnie Stanley, they called it every time to the point where he had to move way up. But again, I don't want to get into the fact that I think that the NFL, it's not rigged for the Chiefs to win, but they give them a lot of favoritism when it comes to these calls. Because I'm like, dude, the right tackle was working with Ronnie Stanley all night, and they didn't call him. And Ronnie Stanley and John Harbaugh even said that in the press conference. They're like, look, their right tackle was in the backfield all night. And they never called it. And, again, I'm not stupid. And again, I'm not trying to be tinfoil hat guy. But, when you've got Taylor Swift and you've got Kelsey and you've got Mahomes and 3-time champions, like it's good for business for the Chiefs to be good and for them to go to the playoffs. Thing. I'm not going to go down this road of Kirk's crazy. But, again, if Taylor Swift is at the next Super Bowl watching her little boyfriend, Mr. Pfizer boy, I think that it's good for business for the NFL. So again, might be nuts, but hey, of all the things that I bet on in my life, like betting on the Chiefs has been it's been a good run for the last year or so. Nevada, any thoughts on that as I broke down that G. Scott play?
No, I think the G. Scott play was absolutely fair. Looked really bad in real time. Like he was just kind of running along, jogging, cheering Trey on or something like that. But as you pointed out, sometimes it's not always what meets the eye. As for the Chiefs, I mean, look, there was one play in particular where the right tackle jumped so soon, and the referee that was up on the top, was on the Ravens side, went to pull his flag and then didn't pull his flag. And John Harbaugh was losing his mind. He was screaming at the guy. And I just don't even understand, because I thought when I was watching, I was like, okay, clearly point of emphasis. They're going to be calling on both teams the whole night, just like you said. And it was just like they were only calling it against the Ravens. And I didn't care. It's like I didn't have action. I didn't care who won. But it was kind of just weird how it was only on the Ravens, and the Chiefs got away with it with impunity.
Well, the thing about that call is, in the history of football, they've literally always they've always said, hey, you know, you get a warning. Like I mean, because there are times where I'd cheat back, and I mean that's just part of life when you do that. But you know, you'd always get a warning if you're too deep. I mean, I would get, and again, I would get to know the side judge, the umpire, and you know, they'd always give me some deference because they'd say, hey, let me know if I'm too deep, and they'd come over and say, hey, scoot up a little bit. Okay, great. So I never got penalized for that, but it's like, you know, you're always trying to cheat a little bit, you know, because then if you're a tackle and you can get back a little bit, it makes your pass blocking a lot easier. Makes it way harder to be a defensive end when the tackle's, you know, back another foot, and you know you don't have as much time to develop a move. So, you know, the side judges were always cool with me because I would literally say, hey, if I'm too far, just let me know. But you know, I'm going to take as much as you're going to give me because that's what good tackles do. It's the same with the way a lot of these good tackles really get off on the mark. And when I say get off on the mark, that means like when they pass protect, when they pass set, like they know the cadence and the rhythm of the center so much that they can literally jump and be like a hair early before the ball leaves, and it looks like it's right on time. That's what good guys do. That's why, you know, when we played that stupid moronic Cotton Bowl and we changed centers and the cadence was different, like, you know, our offensive tackles looked slow. They looked unathletic. You know, they were laid off the ball because they weren't used to Matt Jones's his not really his, it's not his cadence, because, you know, again, they don't say the cadence as a center at Ohio State, but just his rhythm, you know, and again, they were used to Carson's rhythm. And again, if you don't know football, you'd never know that. But, you know, when I played, I got really used to Nick Mangold's rhythm. And Nick used to actually say the cadence. Like when it was a loud place, he would say the cadence because you could hear the center easier than the quarterback when you're playing at Penn State or Michigan. If it's loud and, you know, it's third down, like it's easier to hear the center. But most of the time, like if it was that loud, I wouldn't even listen because I would just look at the ball. Yeah, because if you get really good, you get in a 2-point stance, so you can kind of see the ball just like barely move out of the corner of your eye, and then you can get off on the mark. But yeah, there's my inside baseball. Nevada, anything else? I'm going to break down another play, but anything to add to the G. Scott play?
No, like I said, we believe me, we will tell you if somebody does something bad. We will point them out and get on them. Our opinion, official final answer from Buckeye Scoop on that, it was not as bad as appeared, and so cut you some slack on that particular play. Final answer.
Yeah, and I'm going to break this play out. This one isn't bad. This is a sprint out pass. It's with Will Howard, and it's just a real easy sprint. But the funny thing is that what they want over here wasn't open. And Quinshon, you know, as good as Quinshon is, the biggest difference between Quinshon Judkins and Trey Henderson is an excellent pass blocker. So, you know, Quinshon back here, this is a sprint out. You know, they've got a little misdirection with him coming back on the backside edge. They've got Will over here. But Will doesn't have an option over here. So, you know, again, this is one where Austin Seyerveld, if we're learning, he's got to keep coming on this. Like these guys all have to keep coming. Austin kind of gets soaked up by this nose, and really that should probably go to Josh. And you know, Seth McLaughlin keeps going, and that should, you know, this should be on Seyerveld right here. Like he should keep coming and take that. But everything else is good. But you know, Quinshon, this is a good learning lesson for him. He needs to come kill this guy. He needs to come be more physical. But again, the ball literally should be out right here. So again, I don't kill these guys for this because this is a sprint out where, you know, this is a misdirection coming back this way. Will comes this way and he dumps it somewhere. But it's covered. But you know, Quinshon needs to go, you know, get a piece of this guy. And this is kind of like a leisurely block. But the thing I wanted to point out, the reason I'm breaking this down is because it's not just to point out, oh, look at the blocking, and it's Will Howard, who I think is a billion times better than Kyle McCord. And this is why. If this is Kyle, this is a sack. You know, this guy's in the grasp. This guy's coming. Will Howard sneaks out of here, and he gets rid of it. Now, again, do we get any yardage from it? No, but it's not a negative play. And again, this is something where, you know, again, I thought he did, outside of the one bonehead play where he lateraled it backwards, I thought he was exceptional at getting rid of the ball and not taking a sack, not taking negative. Because again, you know, there's a thing about sacks in football where every time a defensive end gets a sack, people say, well, the offensive tackle must suck or something. But sometimes the quarterback holds on to the ball too long. And Will, I thought, was great about getting rid of it, you know, keeping us on schedule. Because again, there's nothing wrong with an incomplete pass is infinitely better to me compared to a sack, a pick, any sort of negative type play, tackle for loss. And he did a good job of that. Again, I don't mind, like, if you throw it to the stands when nothing's open and nobody shakes free, like, I think that that's something you can work with where, you're not trying to force it. Again, Kyle McCord in that Michigan game, when he forced that slant to Marvin and Will Johnson jumped it and they ran it down to the 2 yard line, like, that's a critical error in a game where you can't make critical errors. Like, you can't give Michigan a touchdown. And again, that was the difference in the game. I'm not blaming Kyle for that, but he threw inside leverage man with Will Johnson versus Marvin, and Will Johnson jumped it. And Marvin ran a very lazy slant. That was probably the worst slant in the history of Ohio State University. And Will Johnson took it and almost ran it back to the house. And within 2 plays, they score, they have all the momentum, and they end up winning. Nevada, your thoughts next. The thing I like about Will is, like, he just doesn't. The O-line had issues. They're kind of up and down, but they didn't give up any sacks. And a big part of that was because of Will Howard's creativity and Will Howard getting rid of the ball. Will Howard throwing it out of bounds when it was suspect. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, that play would have been a sack or an intentional grounding. We saw how many intentional groundings did we see last year with Kyle. He was the king of intentional groundings. But the thing that I'll point out on that play was interesting was Will Howard graded out a champion. I believe it was Offensive Player of the Week. But on that play, one of the things that he's learning is Chip Kelly wants, when he's got man on man with J.J. Smith, they want him to throw the ball. And that is a profound difference than when he was at Kansas State. At Kansas State, that's covered. With J.J. Smith, that's not covered. Give him a chance to make a play. So he took that, broke out of the pocket or broke out of the little scrum of the guys coming at him, and he threw the ball away. And he gets ticked off for a negative on that one because Ryan Day and Chip Kelly want him to throw that ball to J.J. Smith and give him a chance to make a play. And that's just him retraining his brain, where for years, you're dealing with these 2- and 3-star receivers. And, in that situation, you're not throwing it. That's an automatic throw away. Hey, with J.J. Smith, that's a chance for a possible touchdown, and you want to give him a shot at it. So I thought that was the most interesting part of that play to me was, watching Will as he kind of comes under and starts, gains the realization that as I'm playing with these better players, that covered is not always covered. And one-on-one means go. That's a green light automatically for Will Howard, and he's got to throw that football to him.
Yeah, I totally agree. We got a couple super chats, so we'll dig through these and we'll get a little bit more film going. Karis Washington, thank you for the 5. Thanks for being Ultra as well. So where did we land regarding the watch party for the team up north getting toasted by Texas tomorrow at Nevada OH? What do you think, Nevada? Do you want to do it or not? It's up to you. I mean, I can do it. I cannot do it. It's either way.
I mean, I'm not gonna. I'm gonna be watching the game. I've got a lot of money riding on that game, and so I'm gonna be an active participant watching the game and counting my money. And I'm gonna be like Scrooge.
So that's a no. Is what he's saying.
I think I'm gonna be too. I'm going to be too fired up.
Too intense.
Yeah. I'm going to be too intense. Yeah.
You don't want to be swearing when Alex Orji runs for 300 yards like he's like beyond tomorrow.
Full disclosure. Yeah. Full disclosure. Yeah.
Full disclosure. That was good. Full disclosure. That's good. Full disclosure.
Yeah.
I'm into that. Full disclosure.
I am into that. I'm into that game tomorrow. So yeah, I think that I'm probably. Let's put Nevadabuck down as questionable. We're doing the NFL thing. I'm question. I'm not. I'm doubtful. I'm moving to doubtful.
You're like Jamar Chase. Like you're questionable unless you get more money. Unless you get your contract done. Like they put on the injury report. He's got questionable due to rest, aka contract.
Yeah. No, I'm not out, but I'm doubtful. Nevadabuck is doubtful.
He's on the wrong side of doubtful. I like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Schaefer Healthcare, thanks for the 20. I took Scum +7. Wow. Hoping to lose money, but my gut tells me that defense in a night game at home, they will keep it close. I still think Texas will win, but I think they will cover the 7. Nevada, please talk him out of this. Nevada OH.
Well, the first thing is not a night. Did you say night game? Did you say night game?
It's a noon game.
It's a noon game, so maybe
So.
that's the first part of your handicapping right there. We gotta go back on the handicap. It's time of game, so maybe it's a night game like the Philippines or something like that. But in Ann Arbor, it's at noon. Um,
Yeah.
there's a lot of smart people, and that line's come down from 7.5 to 7. That's a key number. Some people think it's going to be close. I just think that I just look at whenever you're looking at a bet, you always kind of look at what the win equity is, and you say, what's the path to victory for a team like Michigan? And it's like they've got to win the turnover battle, they've got to win the penalty battle. Quinn Ewers needs to play really bad. Um, Fatty Donovan Edwards needs to have the game of his life. The offensive line needs to have somehow taken the limitless pill, all this week. Their defense needs to play a heck of a lot better than they did against Fresno State, and Texas just needs to be overwhelmed by the awesomeness, which is the Michigan Stadium. Um, and conversely, I look for Texas, and I'm like, man, their defensive line is absolutely legit. They've won they won in Alabama last year, so they're not going to be intimidated going in, to play in Michigan. Michigan is not a very intimidating place to play. It's certainly not relative to Alabama. Um, they've got the best quarterback, the most experienced quarterback in college football, and Michigan's starting to walk on. And then if they change it up and they go to Orgy, Orgy's keeping it every single time Orgy has the ball. He's going to keep. You can ignore the give. You can forget about the pass because he literally cannot complete a pass more than 5 or 6 yards down the field. And he's going to keep it and he's going to run with it. And I just think that they're overmatched. And if they get behind and they have to throw, then it could get really ugly. Whereas Texas, somehow Texas got down 7-0, 10-0. You're not sweating. You're not gripping. You're not feeling like the game's over. If Michigan gets down 10-0, it's game over. So I think there's lots of paths to victory for Texas and very, very few, if any, for Michigan. So I'm not sure I like that bet.
Yeah, I don't think Michigan's explosive. I don't think that they have anything on the perimeter that can affect them. I don't think they have anything that can, if you put Orgy in, I would run bear defense. Every time he goes in, it's bear defense, straight to it, truck to it, load the box, 10 in the box, make him try to throw it. But even if he tries to throw it, double Colson Loveland, make the receivers beat you, make him try to throw it. I think that it's a winning strategy. Yeah, I did win a bet because nobody thought I'd actually wear this on the air. But I got my Ewers jersey for my boy Q. So good luck to you, Q, and Curtis and the crew. I hope you guys have a good game tomorrow. But it felt weird not wearing black tonight, so I had to get back into the black. I'm going to break down another play. If you guys like the film breakdowns, just type the word like in the chat. I'd love to see it, or type a Y for yes if you guys like these, because again, I know that people tell me they like them, they like learning the stuff, they like learning football. I love studying football, and then I like kind of reporting back to what I saw to tell you guys, because again, I'm going to show you something that I love that Jim Knowles does, because I think Jim Knowles is a guy who is excellent at what he does, and he does a lot of stuff that's very simple that to the naked eye you can't tell, you can't see it, but to me, I watched it, I'm like, man, that's hard. Because again, I always go through the lens of being an offensive lineman and being an offensive line coach. How would you counteract this? How would you coach against this? And this is very simple. This is not some super extreme complex thing, but here they run a simulated pressure essentially, where it's a little run play. But what they essentially do is they trade CJ and JT. So CJ fits like he's a defensive tackle, or D tackle Tyleek loops out, and JT, pushes back like he's a linebacker. Jack blows us up, sets the edge. Our defense, like, this is so hard to go against because essentially it's still a 4-man fit, but Tyleek becomes the D end, CJ becomes the D tackle, and JT, who's aggressive enough, can be kind of the linebacker who's sitting there to fit. So when you look at this, Jack Sawyer starts this whole party off by blowing the tackle up back into the backfield. Again, this is his job is to reach this guy and not lose ground. And Jack puts him 5 yards into the backfield, which again, you want to talk about setting the edge. This is the clinic tape for setting the edge right here. I mean, he pushes him back into the backfield, and then everybody else rallies. So you've got a hat here, a hat here, hat here, hat here. JT, safety's coming down. He's got nowhere to go. And these guys are defeating blocks. Now again, I know it's Akron, so you can say Kirk. Well, but I mean, every gap is filled. Jack is retreating. Tyleek is rallying. JT's getting in the act. So again, that is it's something that you guys say, Kirk, it's not that big of a deal. That they're doing this little, it's a simulated pressure essentially where you've got basically it's a trade right here. So he comes in as D tackle, he becomes the end, JT comes back. But like when you're working on a double team back here, this basically wrecks everything, because all of a sudden when you're in a regular world, you're double teaming from here to here. Now all of a sudden he's avoiding your double team. You're going to give him up, but he's going to be scot-free. So again, I love this, and it's a little subtle thing, but as an offensive lineman or an offensive line coach, like that would give you, some pretty good heartburn, because you're like, well, we can't get the fit that we want, we can't double to the guy that we want, because again, when they're exchanging roles, and you have a guy who's as athletic as JT or Jack Sawyer kind of taking over as a linebacker on the run. I think it's very difficult to go against. And again, I love that kind of stuff, because I'm sitting there and I'm like, God, this would suck to go against, because Tyleek basically gives himself up as an end. And in general, on that play, you're going to leave the end free as a read guy or as a backside guy. And instead, he's right in the middle of the act. What are your thoughts on that, Nevada?
Yeah, I mean, I love those looks. I thought that Knowles did. I mean, you go back in the game, and I'm not sure how many times he actually went with more than four guys. It might have been once or something, but it felt like they could have done that anytime they wanted. What a luxury to be able to actually blitz because of your defensive your secondary and your safeties. When you've got guys that can cover like that, and you're not worried about manning up or across the back, you can bring extra pressure. And so now it's a process where you rush with four, you show your simulated pressures, you bring guys from different directions, and eventually they're going to start bringing five, and eventually they're going to start bringing six. And I'm all about that. I love havoc plays. I love my favorite era of all time for Ohio State defense was Puggich and the Silver Bullets. I know different time, different type of situations, but I love seeing those guys flying in there and flying around and causing problems. And I think if Knowles was ever going to do it, it's this year, because it's rare error when you've got guys that can cover like we do. And you can only do that if you've got the guys that can really get it done, and we've got them. So I'm all about the pressure, and I want to see more and more pressure as the season moves along.
Totally agree. I'm going to go to the very next play. We'll break this one down, and then we can boogie on into the night and go watch the Go Pack Go. But this is an incredible look from Jim Knowles. This is a 3 down. So you got Jack, you've got JT. I don't know if this is Ty or Tyleek. So you get your 3 down guys, and then you're basically playing like it's like dime, like 6 DBs. Here's Caleb. You've got Sonny. I don't know if that's CJ or who it is, and then you've got corner. But this turns into a drop 8. So again, you see these guys bailing out of here, dropping to the zone. So you got Sonny here, you got Arvell here, so you got 6 and 20. And you've got a 3-man rush basically with Caleb as a spy. It's not really a simulated pressure because he's not rushing off the bat. He's more spying the quarterback, but he adds in and he draws this back. So this is basically a 6-man protection where it's this guy's one-on-one. And these guys are supposed to pick up the rest of them. They're kind of sifting it. And Caleb Downs does a great job of drawing the running back. Because, the running back, you always try to put the running back on the smallest guy. So you try to put him on the safety or whatever. But you don't know, at pre-snap, you don't know who's coming. You don't know if he's coming, or if he's coming. So when they scan it and they analyze it, then all of a sudden Caleb is he's drawing the running back. He's occupying him. He's eyeballing the quarterback. Jack Sawyer, again, was dominant. Jack, just crucifies this guy. A long arm right into the pocket, smashes the pocket down. JT's right there. This is a 3-man rush versus 6 guys. And look at this pocket. This is like on Star Wars where they're in the trash compactor and it's all closing in on them about to kill them. That's what it feels like. And then Caleb is stealth, and he adds in here as the quarterback's looking to scramble, and they get him down. And again, that's a 3-man rush versus 6. And again, I know it's Akron, but they're on scholarship too. And again, that is scheme. When you have three guys get home versus six, a lot of it's not always. And again, Jack is overpowering there, but it's not always just overpowering the guys. A lot of it is just confusing the guys. Because again, if you got 6-on-3, even if it's Akron versus Ohio State, six guys. If you double team all three guys and leave Caleb, normally you'd be straight. But again, the confusion aspect of it is what really killed these guys. And with this scheme that Jim Knowles drew up, running backs occupied, looking at Caleb Downs. Caleb folds over. He can't get there and gets the sack. Nevada, your thoughts on that? Because again, I love watching this stuff because this doesn't have to be you need Reggie White and Jerome Brown and Aaron Donald and J.J. Watt. Like this is literally, we've got players that are good. But when you add that confusion element, again, that's why I like Chip Kelly's scheme is it's not just we're better than you and we're going to bulldoze you and run you over and we're going to say right where we're going. It's more the sleight of hand and the confusion aspect. When you add that to overwhelming skill, that's when you get like results like that where you get these havoc plays and you get this this kind of consternation. Because again, I look at that from running an offensive line, playing offensive line, the amount of the confusion, the amount of aggravation, because there's nothing that's more demoralizing when you're a play caller or an offensive lineman, offensive line coach, than when you've got enough guys to block them and they still get home. Again, if the most famous instance of that of all time was when C. Grant sacked Ken Dorsey. Like Miami had enough guys to block that. They just didn't get the protection fixed. So, they had, a 6-man protection and they didn't get it fixed. And C. Grant came running off bat, completely free, sacked Dorsey, national championship, whatever. But that wasn't because of some over. And again, this isn't denigrating C. Grant. C. Grant's a fantastic player, but they blew an assignment, and so C. Grant ran free and got the quarterback on the ground. And like again, when you got a 6-man thing and they bring 5 or 6, like you should be able to get them all. But they didn't. They weren't smart enough to fix it. So. Your thoughts on that, Nevada? Because again, I love the stuff like this where you get a little bit of confusion and it ends up being a fantastic result.
Yeah, I just think it's the evolution of Jim Knowles' defense. I mean, when he came originally to Ohio State, was a little blitz happy because they'd been that way at Oklahoma State. And that's what you needed to do to create pressure was bring more guys than they had, or take those types of chances. And he's become a master at the simulated pressure, and bringing guys from different directions, from different sides, from different angles, twists, stunts, all different things like that. But again, and I don't want to be the old guy that repeats himself, but wait till he starts dialing it up where he's bringing the extra guys. That's where it's going to be really interesting because we've got guys that can do that. Sonny Styles is very good coming forward. C.J. Hicks is very good coming forward. Caleb Downs is exceptional coming forward. So you've got some guys that are slippery, that are good blitzers, that can get there from the secondary. Not everybody's that way. Not every linebacker is a good blitzer. Not every safety is a good blitzer. But we've got some guys that are exceptional at it. And so, by showing all these simulated pressures, when we actually bring the extra pressure, it's really going to create problems for the offenses, and I can't wait to see that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that you look at what he's doing and like what that looked like to me, and it's not the same thing. It's not one for one, but it looked like Caleb Downs was playing the jack there. Like that when I studied Oklahoma State's film when Jim Knowles first got here, and they studied the jack position. The jack was kind of a creation of him when he was at Duke, and he's called the devil, and he's at when he's at Oklahoma State, because he when you're at a smaller program like Oklahoma State or at Duke, you have to take a lot of guys that are tweeners, guys that are maybe not quite a linebacker, maybe not quite a defensive end, and how do you kind of throw them in the cocktail and make it still taste good? So he invented this jack thing, which was a big thing that was on deception and illusion and confusion and the whole 9 yards. And that's kind of what that was with Caleb. Now, it's not, obviously he's not playing jack. He's a safety. But he's down, he's a safety who's literally inside the heels of the defensive tackle, which again, when you're an offensive lineman, once a guy, again, if you've got a defensive tackle down in his stance, a defensive end down in his stance, once a safety or a linebacker walks up into the heels, and by the heels, I mean, like imagine the guy's in a 3-point stance, and he breaks the heels of the player, you treat him like he's a down guy. You treat him like he's a defensive lineman, defensive tackle. So that changes kind of the rules of pass protection. Now, again, I'm not sure exactly what Ohio State does, but we'd always say, hey, if it's a linebacker it's a good rusher, known rusher, treat him like he's a three technique, treat him like he's a D end, and adjust everything accordingly. I don't know if you do that with a safety or not, but I mean that's kind of what it does when you switch it all up. So, but I love it because again, I love having Chip Kelly and Jim Knowles just because I think that between the immense talent that we have and the amount of confusion that they like to create on both sides of the ball, it makes Ohio State very hard to go against. Like, again, my thing is, it's kind of like when we do this podcast and we're Buckeye Scoop, like, the thing that, like, I pride us on we're very hard to go against. Like, people won't try to go against us, like, and I'm just like, good luck. Pack your lunch. We'll see if you guys can beat us or not. And that's kind of that's what Chip Kelly does. That's what Jim Knowles does. It's not just, hey, let's just line up and throw the helmets out there and hope it goes. Like these guys really scheme it up. And again, I've studied this and I'm very impressed by what they do on both sides of the ball. Obviously, Chip left a lot of meat on the bone last week, and he knows that. That's the thing I love about him is he was very hard on himself. He was very, tough on the fact that he's like he didn't feel like he called a good game. And this is the guy that scored 52 points. Like when I was playing in the olden days, like if we scored 20, it was like a miracle sometimes. But Chip Kelly scored 52, and the defense had a couple scores in there, but he felt very disheveled. And I'm sure that this week we're probably going to go ballistic with what we're going to do on offense. So, all right, Nevada, it is cheesehead time. Any final thoughts other than feeling that? And we have a super chat from Sean Rollins again. Thanks for the 20, brother. I appreciate you for being a wrench. Thank you for being an ultra member. Thank you for being a great member of the Buckeye Scoop family. Which some people, we've got so many good people on this thing that's unbelievable. So we appreciate all you guys. But Nevada, any final thoughts, and we can roll on to Jordan Love Day.
No, I'm just what a great weekend. I mean, Browns, Packers, Ohio State, Texas, Michigan. I mean, it just savor these weekends, you boys and girls, because it's these games, the seasons are over way too fast, and this is a great team, and I'm so looking forward to see the Buckeyes play tomorrow night. I think it's really going to be a good game. I think Western Michigan is an absolutely worthy opponent. I really do. And I think they're gonna present a nice challenge for us. So I'm really looking forward to the game, and we'll be on the air tomorrow night post game. So stay up late and drink your hot cocoa, and we'll talk to you guys tomorrow night.
Yeah, brew a couple pots of coffee because we're gonna be on late. We're gonna try to go right after the game. Depends on the traffic for me, but I'm gonna try to get home as fast as possible so that we can go. I try to start a little bit before the game ends, and then we'll get you guys on there and we'll give you the opinions on the game. So, again, we appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for being a huge part of our show. Hope you guys have had a great week. We got a great weekend on tap. Again, thank you guys for all that you guys do. If you guys enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, also click that little alert bell. Appreciate all that you guys do for the show. If you guys want to do something very special to me and Nevada and Kim and our little baby and everybody else in the world, subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe to us on Spotify. It literally takes 10 seconds to do. Go on Apple Podcasts, type in Buckeye Scoop, subscribe, download the episodes, leave a 5-star review. Humongous for our growth. So we thank you guys for that. Again, that costs no money to do. It's completely free. And we're just trying to grow all of our different avenues. Even if you guys enjoy watching this on YouTube, that's something that really helps us. So again, thank you guys so much. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. We'll see you guys tomorrow, late night. We're going to go, hopefully, as soon as the game is over. And again, we appreciate you guys so much for all that you guys do. So you guys have a good time. Go Bucks.